Next, I'll add some branches that are more distinct to the foreground trees. I'll create a new layer at the top of the tree right group called Branch Details. And I'll use the cylinder pen with the Snowy Branches gradient. These will be the middle branches. Don't get too fine here. There are 3 objectives. Add more character to the tree so it looks less uniform, break up areas that look flat, and create branches that are moving toward the observer in 3-dimensional space rather than up or down or side to side. Repeat this for the left tree, but not the middle one since it's in the background. Next, make a selection of these branches and create multiply and screen layers above each of them. Just like how I tinted the branches earlier, I'll do that again using the digital airbrush G with the appropriate mode selected for each layer. Make the branches match the 3-dimensional form of the canopy, but don't over-darken them to where they blend back in again. Also use the trunk color to blend the bases of the branches into where they connect to the tree, so there isn't a jump between the tree color and the new branches. Use the screen layer with the snow color to lighten a bit nearest the sun. Use some sky color on the shadow side to cool it off as well. Create another couple of layers called Frost 2, and use the linear size P angle B color brush with the far twigs nozzle and a very light snow color to frost the branches. Enable preserve transparency and cool the frost in the shadow areas with the digital airbrush and the sky color set to your main color. If you overfrost, disable preserve transparency and use the eraser. You may want to go back and forth between these layers to create contrast to separate the branches from the surrounding trunk and other trees. Next, you may want to select the trunk layer, and with preserve transparency enabled, use a brighter brown to match the trunk color to the branches near the top of the tree. Next, use the smooth palette knife with the darkest trunk color to put shadows back on the side of the largest branches. It may help if you isolate layers by holding Alt and clicking on the visibility icon, or you can hide the other trees and branches. You can hide and show multiple layers at once by holding Shift or Control to select them. While we have some layers hidden, let's disable preserve transparency, make a selection of the trunks, and create a thick paint layer called Trunk Thick with a visible depth of 40% to add some thickness to the trunks. I'll use the Broken Paint Flat brush with a lighter brown from the HSY gamut and use light pressure to make the paint break. You may want to reduce the scale of the simulated wood grain paper to make the features finer. When you're working with thick paint and using it to create form in your subjects, be sure that the lighting on the canvas matches the lighting in the scene. In this case, both are on the top left, but you would want to adjust the surface lighting if the light source were somewhere else. Because changing the surface lighting affects everything on the canvas, this is something you should do before you start a painting. Next, use a slightly darker, more desaturated sky color to add some reflected light onto the trunks at the base. Go back over the top with the dark shadow brown, and that should give you a nice texture. Make sure the far right edge of the trunk stands out against the background. To make the trunks look frosted, add a light touch of snow color. Make sure to cool the color in the shadow areas. Repeat this on the left and middle trees. When I am finished, I'll deselect any selections that might still be active from the trunks. Then I'll show those hidden layers. Now let's cast a shadow from the trees on the ground. Above the mound group, I'll create a new multiply layer called Tree Shadows. I'll select the smooth palette knife and a dark indigo shadow color. Make it around the same value as the shadow you used for the bush. Next, use the coarse oily blender with the basic paper to blend vertically to break up the edges of the shadow so they look like they're taking on the form of the grass blades. Use Grayscale Preview and adjust the opacity if needed. The shadows should be a bit lighter than the trunks. Next, I'll use the cylinder pen with the Snowy Branches gradient to paint with a very fine brush and add lots of fine twigs throughout the painting. I'll start in the foreground grass, create a layer above all of the other layers for twigs. You could create multiple layers of twigs within the groups, but I don't think it's necessary since the planes of twigs shouldn't overlap. Use upward or downward strokes to make lighter or darker features. This helps to add contrast while separating the branches from the background. I'm drawing fractal shapes that are very similar to the trees. Other times, I am painting individual grass blades. Just use your imagination here. Use a smaller brush as you move into the background. Enable Preserve Transparency, and use the digital airbrush G with the multiply mode to tint the branches and twigs to blend them in or add contrast. Use a blue shadow color wherever it is appropriate. Then switch the merge mode to screen and lighten in the bright areas of the scene. Create a new layer above that for distant trunks. Disable Preserve Transparency and use the cylinder pen to make some distant tree trunks. Rather than add a mask, you can also use the dab chalk eraser found in my hard media category, along with the simulated wood grain paper, to remove some of the trunks to make them look covered by foliage. Enable Preserve Transparency and use the sky color with the digital airbrush to lighten these so they look more distant. Now let's add some fine shadows here and there. I'll start in the grass on the left. I'll create a new multiply layer beneath the twigs layer. I'll disable Preserve Transparency and use the chalk brush with the hard laid paper with the contrast at 400% and the brightness around 86. I'll sample one of the darker indigo colors from the stream and paint over the grass on the left. The scale of the hard laid paper will control the scale of the shadows. Match the scale to the size of the grass and scale it smaller as you move into the distance. Next, add a layer mask and select black. Keep painting with the hard laid paper, changing the scale to eat away at the shadows. After that, apply the layer mask and enable Preserve Transparency. Use one of the darker brown grass colors to tint the grass shadows warmer on the right side of the land. Adjust the layer opacity as needed to blend it in. Disable Preserve Transparency when you are finished with it. Let's enhance some of the colors by glazing. I'll start with the grass on the left. I'll make a selection of the land FG left layer and create a new color burn layer above the grass left details. Then I will use the digital airbrush with warm colors from the HSY gamut to paint mostly on the bottom right near the water. Don't make the tinting too saturated, and be sure to reduce the opacity of the layer until it just slightly tints the grass a bit warmer. Use a cooler color to tint the top left and top right edges, but not too strongly. I'll repeat this on the right grass. You will be able to paint outside of the grass, so avoid the stream and the snow. Warm the grass the same way, but this time make the distant grass a bit cooler near the shoreline. Let's move to the stream and add a stream details and a stream darken layer above it. First, make a selection of the stream, and on the darken layer, fill it with a dark desaturated indigo. Make the layer multiply, and reduce the opacity until the water is just slightly darker. This will help the reflections look more natural. Next, on the details layer, we can use the smooth palette knife to darken some of the shadow areas and add more detail to the ripples. Use the grass color, sky color, deep indigo shadows, and even some of the bright blues from the HSY gamut. Don't forget that there is a frozen patch in the middle of the stream. Make that look lighter and rather flat with the digital airbrush and a lighter color. Then fade the edges to a sky blue. You can experiment with having the darken on top of the details or vice versa. I think it looks better brighter with the details on top, but if you want darker water, leave it how it was. Now let's merge these layers together with the stream and blend a bit with the greasy blender. If you overblend, add more detail back in until the stream is looking satisfactory. Next, I'll go to the land FG left group and add a new layer at the top called Edge Blending. I'll enable Pick Up Underlying Color and select the Smooth Knife Blender. Then I'll blend with horizontal zigzag strokes along the edge where the grass meets the water. This is a useful technique for blending layers that are separate from each other. However, it will mess up your layer order by transferring paint from the lower layers to the selected layer. Next, we'll disable Pick Up Underlying Color and use the Smooth Palette Knife to add a few more waterline details. Use a light snow color with a fine brush to separate the shoreline shadows from the water. Then use a dark brown to imply vertical grass shadows. Now we'll add some brighter snow details around the entire scene. In the trees FG group, I'll create a new layer beneath the tree shadows called Snow Pile. I'll use an almost white with the smooth palette knife to paint on the top edges of the big limbs to make snow piled on top. This may be really hard to see since there are a lot of branches. Just add it wherever it shows. Add a bit of shadow to the snow as well. I'll also add a few white spots and frozen grass here and there on new layers at the top of the land FG group. Just use these to break up repeating patterns and lead the eye around the painting. Then I'll use the blur blender to soften the bottom edge of the distant bushes, and use a thick paint layer with broken paint flat and some nearby colors to add some more detail to the larger hill. I also see a place that needs a bit more glazing with a digital airbrush at the base of the trees. I'll also reduce the opacity of the fine shadows a bit more. And I think I'll even lighten the tops of the distant brown trees as well. I'll add in a brighter red color here and there, and maybe one more touch of snow color. At this point, I have added almost all the detail I want to include in this painting. Because I am going for a semi-impressionistic style, I don't want to over-render the details. We can begin to wrap up the painting by looking at a couple of optional steps that may help you with your landscape paintings. Before we do that, let's delete the sketch layers since we no longer need them. And let's save our current progress. Coming up in the final video, we will explore some optional techniques for improving your landscape painting. Then we will add the finishing touches to complete the painting.